Yes, because we think, like Daniel said before, art is for everyone. We want it to be accessible for everyone. And we think about like the locations, how can people see it from a distance, how can you like take buses there, and so on. And a really important thing for us is to work with the communities that we're in the area to maximize the effects.
Yeah, because we do kind of co-creative artwork as well as part of all our projects. We do the massive ones you see on the pictures that are, for practical reasons, can only be done by professional artists, but then we also invite the public to, like in every single project we do, we invite the public to create with us. And there's no requirements for artistic skill or age or anything. So that everybody can feel that they can be part of the bigger project and be part of the process. And I also think that because we create the art in front of everybody, that is also kind of a little bit of magic that kind of makes us, creates kind of an immediate ownership from the public, which is very important. And then like really underline what Joe was saying about like we're always in every kind of area in a city or in a town, just to kind of symbolically show that art is for everybody. And also because to make it accessible for everybody, which is the easiest way. We said art should be free, like every single thing we've done for 11 years now has been free of charge. It's a requirement for us here to do the project.
Then we work with a lot of artists that used to be in the public space, and like you were saying, that it's important to connect and so on with the audience. And I think street artists are really used to this, connecting with their surroundings in different ways, just being friendly and inclusive.
They don't have a choice. They spend 350 days a year on the streets. Like they get approached all the time. They wouldn't be able to do the job if they weren't able to communicate well and kind of, you know, building the communities, not even by knowing.
Mm-hmm. I have one follow-up question for you guys, Artscape, but then it will be the opportunity for y'all to ask first round of questions, so keep them fresh. But I'm curious if you could talk about what challenges Artscape might be facing at the moment. This isn't one that I shared with you earlier, but if you have any barriers or blockers to the work that you're doing, how would you label those, or what would you say is a challenge?
Wow, how much time do we have?
In one word, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, when we started 11 years ago, the climate in Sweden was completely different when it came to an attitude towards the kind of art we do. There was a zero tolerance in Stockholm, which meant that like doing any kind of murals and stuff was completely illegal. There was no way of doing it in a legal way. That's kind of been dissolved. So we're still fighting that kind of fight of bringing Sweden up to speed with the rest of the world when it comes to attitude towards art in the public space. That's a big obstacle. But then it's just everything else by working in the public space. And we have a long list.
Yeah, everything can go wrong in your public space. But I think also, because we're jumping around, like Danny said, we've been in 45 municipalities. It would be so easy if we just stayed in one, because then like everyone would know us. And now we kind of have to restart every time we do a new project in a new municipality.
Yeah,
but I think that's one of the biggest challenges, but we're pretty used to it by now as well.
Just going to say the reason why we were jumping around all the time is we kind of taken that responsibility of opening up Sweden to this art form. Hard work, but maybe
worth it.
Yeah, it's going to be worth it someday.
Sure. I mean, after 46, I mean, either way, it's really impressive.
Yeah, there's like 200 left.
Okay, what questions do you guys have?
Yes, also like a lot of you talking about inclusivity, and someone mentioned proximity and like building these human connections. And I remember last year when we studied, we talked a lot about the like disconnect, the disconnect to nature, but also disconnect to people. I feel like this is a big like unsustainability problem. So I wanted to ask like what barriers do you see like with working with these like creating proximity and building connections to people in your line of work? You were touching upon it a little bit, like moving around to different municipalities makes it hard. You have to rebuild the relationships once again. But other than that, like what challenges do you see in working with human connections?
Can I jump in and start? Yep. I think for us, we're working with so many different kind of people, and it's hard to reach all of them. We really want to be like for the youngsters up until the maybe not. Yeah. And that's hard sometimes to reach, and also to get them interested in getting them to the spaces and so on. So we work a lot with that. We have been doing a lot of special work for youth, but we're also planning to do with senior people to try to get them more into the process and so on, and get them to visit our pieces. I think that's the challenge. We meet a lot to get everyone involved.
Do you know what makes them not, like, what is the challenge that's keeping them involved?
Well, some people are just in their apartments and don't go out, and that's a challenge to get them in. But
I'm almost going to like contradict you here, because I think like our target audience is everybody, and we like watching our social media, for instance. We can easily track who's following us and so on, and like it's super equal. It's like there's like equal amount of old people or younger people, both like different sexes, and like everybody's represented in following Artscape on social media. And it's the same who we meet on the streets and who we talk to. Like we were talking about, we want to get people who are older into kind of creating together with us, but they are maybe our biggest fans when we're actually out on the streets. So I think we're very lucky in able to create these connections between people. And we've noticed that our murals work as excellent meeting points. And there's so many meetings that wouldn't have happened otherwise that happens right in front of our eyes. It's amazing. Like I wish I had a little camera and could have shot, because it's beautiful things that have happened over the years. And it's often across age barriers and so on. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, either one of you.
Yeah, but I also think that's actually a purpose with art and culture. It's like a large, like a bonfire, like an opportunity to gather around, or like as an artist, you present or a performer, you present an idea or you ask a question, and then you get people to engage, and then you can connect on that platform of culture or art. So I think it's an important work for artists.
Alana, did you want to add too?
Yes, I would like to say that a challenge, but I don't see it as a problem, is what Fredrik was saying about also things take time. And I think that the problem is actually when the structure is so project-based, when you want to have like a very super quick, quantity-based audience. And trust takes time to build, and audience takes time to build. It takes time to formulate and find your voice. So it's a challenge, but it's not a problem. The problem is that maybe not always you have the luxury of time to be able to work for a while to build up that audience. But I would definitely say, that we should not expect things to just be quickly in like large amounts.
And to add to that, not into the question of time, I think like one problem we can face is the lack of means, which is actually linked to time, because just this work of reaching audience and convincing audience that it's a space that might be interesting for them, it's a full-time job. So that's also a question.
Thank you. We have time for two more. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of like to link what you said. So you mentioned something about what you do provokes conversations, or like you invite conversations to get together and address some hard issues. I was wondering, is this something that you do? Because you mentioned that you do art for everybody. And I was wondering first, like, do you mean that it's accessible to everyone? Or do you mean like it's acceptable and accepted by everyone? And then you mentioned something that, sometimes you can't display the art when where you want to display. So I'm also wondering who decides those kind of art to be displayed and to which audience.
This is directed to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want it?
No.
No, I think it is accessible. Absolutely, that's one way of it. But in the boring answer is also that it's acceptable because it's in the public space. I mean, we would love to be in a gallery where you can close the door and people can choose to come there. And that's the difference. When we do art in the public space, and it's going to be permanent art, or at least semi-permanent, you can't really have offensive art, so to speak. You need to have some kind of idea of what's acceptable. Otherwise we wouldn't exist today. I mean, we wouldn't be allowed to do more projects.
And who decides about those values? Because sometimes, like, there was this mural in Malmö, and I think it was a veiled girl or something like that. And then it created a lot of conversation I saw in like social media and so on. I don't know if you did it or not.
No, it was
But it was like, yeah, but it's part of the representation. I mean, it's
was a
not
nice mural,
offensive,
so.
but then the interpretation, and it just became scandalous, also the way people reacted to it, but also it created conversations. Sometimes provocative art, even though, I don't know if it's meant to be provocative or not, but yeah, the point is sometimes you can move conversations.
Absolutely.
With provocation.
We get criticized all the time for being too nice. Our art is too nice, it's too for everybody, but it's like Till said, the only reason why we keep getting renewed responsibility of actually redoing what the public space looks like is because we're not being too offensive or being too challenging. And for us, it's like we were talking about time earlier. Like it's a long game. Like when we started, just doing what we do was super controversial, and in some ways it still are because we're still going to municipalities in Sweden that have never seen anything like it. So for us, just doing a massive mural is considered super controversial.
To jump in there, we were actually, just to tell you how controversial, we were actually up in the Markmiljödomstolen, and they've been charged for doing like art in the wrong way and stuff like that. So yeah, just by doing art in the public space, it can be controversial. But I also think since we're moving to new municipalities and introducing this art form, it's really important to have like a nice way to introduce it. And then if we were staying in the same place year after year, maybe we can like expand those borders. But
yeah, we see it as it's a bigger fight, and we're only on one flank doing our thing. And then there's galleries like Signal, and we hope to be kind of like to sort of inspire people to seek out other art forms that is more challenging, for instance. Yeah, that's how we see it. We reach a lot of people, and that's kind of the magic what we do.
Yep.
Yes.
So there was a comment in the beginning that art is naturally sustainable, and I've reflected on this, and sometimes, because, for example, travel is one big aspect of how artists need to travel. If you have a festival, you need to invite artists. Another theme is materials, and usually sustainable materials are more expensive, or sustainable travels takes longer time and it's more expensive. So I was wondering if you could reflect a bit more on that aspect and how do you approach this? It's a challenge, I think, to be sustainable with low amount of money.
I can start, but then I'm sure we have various ways of how we deal with those aspects. I would say sustainability from our perspective is a lot of reuse, so it's not necessarily buying the more expensive sustainable material if there is that choice, but it's more like always reusing the best possible way. So minimizing waste because we cannot afford to have waste. So that would be, yeah.
But for example, I don't know how it is with art, but for stage productions, if you would like to store those stage buildings, you would need you need storage space, which costs. It is usually more work to reuse something than just building a new stage.
For a stage, I can imagine, I don't have that experience, but maybe.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a question. So that for me, the easiest way is to make sure you're going to make work in a way that you're not going to face this kind of problem. So you will not have this extra costs. So, for example, in my work for the stage, things can be in a bag and it's stored in my cellar. For example, but and for me that's also a choice to not budget for this kind of big stage design and to not make performances for this kind of big stages. Also, when you avoid this kind of problems.
Any other comments on that?
I mean, we can comment as well. We can go the way with the higher priced free materials because that could add a couple of years to the artworks, which makes it more sustainable. So that makes sense for us to work close with the paint companies and so on to make sure we get the right materials for the right surfaces and so on, just to make sure we're as sustainable as possible. And paint, you can never be like completely sustainable, but still.
And how about travel? Yeah, I know that for our projects, you can travel a lot, and that's also something super expensive. How do you deal with these issues?
We're on a tight time schedule, so we can't really do anything sometimes but to fly artists in. We can't. They don't have the time schedule to do anything else because they need to work all over the world and go to city to city. So yeah.
I think for us, again, being like a small organization, it's maybe not having so many sites visit beforehand, so you wouldn't have many travels before for the production, but then it's very important to be able to physically work together in the space because our work is spatially based. So yes, of course, travel is a part, but again, it's about combining both local, national, international artists. So we're trying to find a balance between that. Again, working with a tight budget, I think that the amount that we can spend in travel is fairly low. So still we do it, but it would be quite low. Yeah. But I do think that to be able also to have those physical moments of meeting and exchange are super important. So we wouldn't rule it out.
I can share some perspective from the fashion industry also when it comes to maybe the materials. I agree with you, working with fashion designs, that it doesn't have to be more expensive because now it's a lot about remaking and reusing of materials. And also I want to share an interesting view during the pandemic, because then I was working with H&M as a fashion designer, and we thought that we had to do these crazy inspiration trips, like several times a year, going to New York, to Tokyo, Paris, London, several trips a year. But then during the pandemic, we couldn't do those trips, and it worked totally fine. So you don't need to do these kind of travels. You can do your work as good without these travels. So now it's not that many travels in those kind of purposes to find inspiration. So you can find that inspiration where you are. You don't have to do the traveling.
We're going to kind of transition into some individual questions that will be maybe less, I don't want to say less long, but kind of just to get a snapshot from each of you that's very specific. Then again, some questions for everyone, and then we'll end with questions from the audience too. And I'm going to start with you, Fredrik. Your movement practice is really rooted in somatic awareness, and I've gotten to participate in some of the workshops where you do somatic teaching and kind of teach what you know from that area. Can you share how you think about dancing and the movement of the body stimulating empathy and compassion for both ourselves and then also subsequently the world. So movement and empathy.
For me, like if I speak of somatic practices in general, so maybe first I should say something about what are somatic practices, but that are like practices that belong to the field of movement education and that approach the body not as an object of study, but they approach the body from the point of view of the experience of having a body. So it's also approaching the body from a subjective experience and also through certain processes of embodiment, building a subject, your subjectivity. So in that sense, like I think that empathy is part of this, but I think one big aspect for me that cannot manifest without empathy is actually the production of knowledge through having the experience of having a body and sharing, and also like so you build that knowledge on an individual level, but actually it's a very collective process of building knowledge collectively about the body. Typically in many somatic, not in all somatic practices, but like for example, what I'm proposing is technosomatics. I make sure there are always moments where actually in small groups, people exchange about what they have experienced through the exploration we've done. So there's really like the elaboration of a whole field of knowledge there that is made collectively, where you have also to listen and acknowledge the experience, the specific experience of one person. So I got lost. Yeah. I don't know if I have answered properly your question, but sorry.
Empathy and embodiment.
Yeah. So in that sense, that I think that these processes of embodiment are really like a fantastic actually tool for building actually community and in this process also of building knowledge.
Yeah.
And to go back to somatic practices also where they come from, there was like the term emerged, I think, like at the end of the 60s or something like this. There was a book by Thomas Hanna called Bodies in Revolt. So it was also really, and so that term, somatics, emerging was really very much also about sharing the experience of having a body and how we are marked by the context and by our bodies being objectified.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's so much potential in this kind of space where suddenly our bodies are not objects, but that's where we also produce a subjectivity together, embodied. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something we can bring in many other areas of our lives. Mm-hmm. Many benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from that place too, when we are talking about imagined futures or maybe getting into the like project management conversations, there's impetus points of knowing your body, creating shared bodily knowledge. There's a lot to learn in that community building space. So if you want to go to technosomatics with me, just hit me up. Okay, for Daniel and Tor, we've talked in this course a lot about stakeholder mapping, who's a stakeholder, how we loop in stakeholders. I'm curious if you have thoughts on how that circle of stakeholders works in Artscape, who you're connecting with regularly, what are the challenges behind connecting with stakeholders or mapping out your stakeholders?
In this sense, how do you define stakeholders as?
You might say that your community that's gaining the mural is a stakeholder, the artist involved.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Like that's basically everyone that's going to be a part of the project. You might consider the environment as a stakeholder in the project, but it takes a lot of organization.
Everybody is our stakeholders, but I think we're going to say something about sponsorship and stuff, right? Because that's important to us.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, we reach a lot of people. So there's also a lot of brands that want to kind of get connected to us and so on. And from the start, we've been very sort of hardline. We don't let anybody sponsor us that aren't directly connected to what we actually do. So we have partnerships with paint companies and lift companies, but they're not allowed to brand us in any way. They're just allowed to collaborate with us.
Allowed to give us money.
Yeah, and they're allowed to fund our projects.
Yeah, that's a nice way to say it.
And but it's like Red Bull stopped calling us. Like they tried for several years, but that's not the kind of partnerships we want, because they only want to kind of piggyback on what we do, and we create art for art's sake. Like it's for everybody, and it's for the artists to freely express themselves. So that's how we deal with kind of brands and that kind of like financial stakeholders. We create art for the people, but also to kind of give artists the chance to express themselves and do, like when we started, like we said, there wasn't possibilities for Swedish artists, local artists to do these kind of projects. And like you said earlier, we want to work with local and kind of Swedish artists, local artists from the area that we're working in currently, and international artists, and kind of make that blend that is also heavy hitting internationally, because we have a big international following, and kind of create that platform for the local artists to kind of stand shoulder to shoulder with the heavyweights of our world that are international. Anything else?
You can add municipalities and building companies and stuff like that, but
Yeah, I mean, the reason kind of sort of property owners and municipalities, I mean, they kind of want to make, a better environment for everybody, as in public space environment for everybody, and everybody. I mean, this is kind of a little bit of why we're good at what we do, but also our kind of challenge all the time, because everybody that gets attached to us they have their agenda, and it's not the same as anybody else. And we have to kind of be in the middle and make everybody happy at the end. The artist needs to feel that they did their thing. The public needs to be, happy about the art that we've created, and the municipality and the property owners and everybody who's contributed wants to be happy at the end and feel proud of what we created together. But they have different reasons, and we have to be in the middle and just make sure everybody's happy at the end. It's hard work, but it's very fulfilling, and when it comes off and everybody's happy, it's a great feeling.
And there's something to enjoy at the end of it, instead of it just fluffing off into nowhere.
And that's also sort of permanent. I mean, in our world, permanent means kind of 20, 25 years. But we started 11 years ago as Artscape, and everything's still here, and it's a sense of pride.
Okay, my next question is for Elena. This class has been talking about how there's power and agency in storytelling, and there's also power and agency in leadership. And I'm curious how you think about storytelling in your curatorial work, and how that maybe connects to how you lead in the space.
Yes. Let me try and just put this. The feeling is like it's all over there, and so I think that, as I was saying before, we work. I mean, exhibitions and contemporary art is our tool and our language, but through that we are addressing various themes. So it's about communicating and finding the best way that the artist's intentions, but also the intention of the exhibition, is being communicated to both as an exhibition in the space, but then communicated to the audience. And I would definitely say not in a way that is overtly pedagogical, because I think that totally kills the trust of the thinking capacity of the audience. So it's really about fine-tuning that balance and still pushing as much as possible the artist to take kind of new steps in their work together with us as thinking partners and just also at a very early stage maybe posing those difficult critical questions that you don't really want to hear, but you know at the end that they were good that they were posed. So that's one aspect. And then thinking about how that will be translated spatially in the space. And then of course how that will then be told to the audience. So for example, never having an exhibition text would kind of reveal everything, but that we always try to think about the exhibition text as an ingredient in the exhibition that can have its own tone, but at the same time would also be a tool, informative, but will not kind of just kill the content.
Yeah. I think that quality is also, you correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're like leading of the space, if you're leading from a place of allowing people to take in, interpret, and enter into the space in a certain way, then your leadership style is maybe open, or
I would say that it's a very gentle way of pushing things forward. So we know what we want, but we would never impose it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we also need to change our own what we want. But the thing is, gently pushing things. And always being able to turn.
adaptability too.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matilda, we want to know more about why you came to SALSU. Where were you at maybe in your journey? We know that it was maybe a transition moment for you.
Yeah.
So we'd love to know more about that transition moment for you. What were your challenges and curiosities? And then post-program, what do you see being integrated, or what feels like the most used tools from the program that you use?
Where I was, what I saw, where my position was before SALSU, was that I saw unsustainability around me. So I thought this is not workable anymore, so I have to do a change. And I want to get more knowledge so I can contribute to that change. So I took a course from my career as a fashion designer and applied for the program here in Malmö, because I also thought that I needed a bigger perspective as a tool going forward. Because when you're working as a designer, it's kind of practical work in a way. You use almost like your body more, and you're not so much in theory, so to say. It's very much about practice, and I felt that I had a longing, and also as that I needed more of a theoretical perspective of sustainability to be able to drive those urgent questions, so to say. So then I thought that this program is kind of a broad program, and also what I really thought was interesting is the cross-disciplinary idea that everyone has different backgrounds, and I thought opportunity in that this is a context where I can develop and meet a lot of interesting people to share perspectives and so on. So that's why I choose to apply for this program. And then after, like post SALSU, what was the question now? How I integrate the knowledge? Yeah. I think, I mean, the knowledge you get from this program is, I mean, you can apply that in any situation in life, I would say. I mean, talking about stakeholder perspective, project management, systemic thinking, and these kind of theories that we go through. I mean, I use it all the time, not only in my work. It's really good knowledge for any situation in life. So that's how I see and use the knowledge from the program.
Yeah.
Is that an answer?
We're close to being at time, so if there's questions, let's make them a little short. Yeah, but any questions from the group?
I have a question for Artscape and Matilda. I feel we talk a lot about making people happy, and that Matilda, you felt uncomfortable working in an unsustainable business. But what about those spaces? Like, how do we avoid working in like an echo chamber, or like just interacting with people who are aligned with what we think of our values? Because those unsustainable practices, like if we want them to change, someone has to sit there and be in discomfort. So how do you guys think about that?
I think the discomfort question is super interesting, because I also think that, I mean, obviously, it's something that people try to avoid. Everyone wants to be in their comfort zone, to say. But I think if you're an artist or designer, I think we are more used to be outside our comfort zone. That's our job, so to say. We are like first in line, always. We need to come up with the new ideas. So that's, in a way, the norm for artists and designers, to be in this uncertainty zone, so to say. So I think we can contribute with courage in that sense, I think, to break these rules and to be in the front line and dare to ask the questions that might be uncomfortable to many.
Any other responses on discomfort? That was actually one of our questions too, was how do you sit with discomfort? Where does discomfort show up in your work?
I was thinking when I read the question, in a way, I love discomfort, but not in a way of putting somebody else in a discomfort position, but always discomfort towards power. And how can we actually, to go back to the question, how can we make sure that we just don't speak to our like-minded? I think that's a struggle that we kind of bear on us every day. And sometimes it's like small impact, sometimes it is a larger impact, but I think just having that incitement or that perspective to actually have discomfort towards power somehow.
Do we have a final question? Yeah?
Yes.
Last one.
So I think working with sustainability can be really frustrating, I would say, because every step that we take feels like it's overtaken by unsustainable practices, but like at much higher speed. For example, at the fashion, you are like, we try to work with sustainable products, but at the same time, the Chinese market is spamming Europe with like a lot of fashion. So, short question: how do you stay hopeful in this kind of scenario?
It's a good last question. Hope. I think anyone can take it. How do you stay hopeful in your work, or where does hope come into your work?
For me, it's to always try and be active and to learn new things, and not to don't think so much about those problems. Just like do things, try and do your best. Like, that gives me hope.
I would say for me, what gives me hope, or what sustains my hope when I'm very close to lose it completely, is to make sure that I connect and collaborate with also other, take part in other projects, and collaborate with other organizations that are also working in similar directions. Like for example, like last year, I was invited to actually quite a big music festival in Portugal. We are really working with sustainability. They really take care of the land there. Their idea is that when the festival is over, the land is in a better shape than before the festival. And it's 11,000 people coming there. So you can imagine, but that's like for me, like connecting to this kind of initiative, it's absolutely wonderful, and I absolutely loved performing there, and that gave me hope.
Daniel, Tor, or Elena?
I can start.
Yeah.
I think, hope is to find points of inspiration that do not make you feel alone in your field of work or in the struggle or in the fights. So, as Fredrik was saying, when you really feel like you're almost totally hopeless, that's when those small straws of other people's work that inspire you are so important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, hope for us, I guess, we need hope, because so many of our projects has been like almost dead so many times. And we just, it's a hope that keeps us pushing them through, and we just make it happen when everything is against us.
Yeah, I think also maybe it's easy to talk about hope, but a lot of us and everybody here probably do these things because we have to do them. So there's no choice anyway, even if you are hopeless.
And on that note, thank you all so much. We'll have a quick 10 minutes, so grab some fika, and then we'll all come back for our keynote speaker. Yeah?
Yeah, okay. I will take this one down.
Yes, it is you want to jump in. She's only reading off of this, by the way. This can still be projected up there. Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah, we'll go. We'll have this up. Do you want this water up here? Okay, everybody, welcome to our keynote speaker. I'm going to give a short intro and then we have about 30 minutes to learn from Jada. Jada is a project manager, curator, festival programmer with Trans-European Halas. Am I saying it right? Halas? Yeah. And she'll speak more about her work. It's fascinating. It's directly connected with some of the themes we've been talking about in our panel discussion and in the course. So we can all give a warm welcome to Jada.
Thank you very much. First of all, can you hear me? Because I don't know. Well, it's a bit hard to speak, having my background behind, but maybe I should start saying that I'm a seagull, and my word was freedom. So, good afternoon, everyone. I want to begin by thanking the organizers for the invitation for bringing us together in this space for dialogue. It's a pleasure to be in a room filled with diverse perspectives and creative energy. A heartfelt thank also to the panel speakers, Frederic, Daniel, Tur, Elena, and Matilda, for such an inspiring discussion, one that resonated with me on many levels. I would like to contribute to the conversation from the standpoint of my organization, Trans-Europalis, TH shortly, and share some personal reflections and hopefully a little bit of positive provocation on the way. At the heart of every organization and structure are the people who create, shape, transform, dismantle, and rebuild them. So it's crucial to acknowledge that we all are continually influenced by the systems we navigate. For me, the challenge has been to cultivate a practice that stays true to its essence without becoming an institution in itself. After more than 20 years in the arts and culture, I often find myself departing from and returning to this gray area of contemplation. Let's start with Trans-Europalis. Founded 42 years ago by a group of visionary community makers with a shameless desire for change. In 1983, when Philip Gruber was involved in setting up an art center in the former covered market in Brussels, he reached out to a few similar initiatives across Europe for help. 6 other cultural pioneers answered his call. They all met in Brussels that year. Today, we are an established European cultural network, home to 170 grassroots cultural organizations across 43 countries, from Azerbaijan to Georgia, from Ukraine to Morocco. These organizations are driven by civic-minded individuals who reclaim ownership through commoning, repurposing buildings, and communal transformation. Trans-Europalis is more than just a network. It's a community that unites artists, thinkers, doers from all walks of life. Together, we reclaim more than 110 spaces in Europe and beyond. By the end of 20th century, the value of these neglected spaces has increased enormously. We stand as a counterforce against displacement, evacuation, gentrification, segregation, and other urban injustices. We advocate for the fundamental principles of democracy, citizen engagement, decolonization, intercultural dialogue, and freedom of expression. So, what does it mean to repurpose abandoned buildings for arts, culture, and activism? For us at Trans-Europalis, it's about using experiential methods to engage communities, transforming urban spaces through bottom-up, community-driven initiatives. We believe in self-organization, sharing resources, and learning through practice. It's about questioning norms and shifting perspectives with ideas influenced by fields ranging from social science and education to critical geography, organizational studies, and of course, artistic practices. Participatory governance, commoning, placemaking, and non-hierarchical, decentralized thinking guide our work. This involves thousands of people actively engaged in shaping issues that directly impact their lives. Which brings me to the crucial point, the hierarchy of knowledge. For much of history, research and knowledge production have been institutionalized in ways that systematically excluded contributions from those outside the professional elite. Today's dominant models of knowledge creation still have their roots in this legacy. That's why it's very essential to recognize the significant body of expertise amassed by TransEurope House members, our organizations, known for their inclusive, innovative, and bottom-up approaches. One concrete example of this, Rebuilding to Last, a recently concluded project. Rebuilding to Last aimed to reimagine cities as inclusive, sustainable spaces for both human and non-humans, shifting away from continuous construction towards thoughtful, sustainable reinvention. With support from experts in sustainable architecture, urban planning, and innovation, we work to integrate sustainable practices into independent cultural centers. The project identified challenges through research, built leadership capacity through education and mentorship, and raised awareness of EU sustainability priorities among cultural organizations and their audiences. With this background in mind, if we circle back to the seminar's theme of arts and sustainability, I would say that TransEurope Hales and each of our member organizations, working within their own distinct political and social context, represents proof that the arts are the fundamental driver of transformation. Whether societal or environmental, we are actively translating this vision into action through our many projects and initiatives. At the intersection of many societal issues, projects are a way to foster cross-disciplinary, trans-border collaboration. But the unique context of each member cultural center and the positionality of the makers add layers of complexity when we try to bring our efforts together. One example I want to highlight is cultural transformation movement. Cultural transformation movement is a context-based process that challenges how artistic production is created and where it lands, starting from within the organization itself. With our partners in Austria, Belgium, Italy, and Ukraine, we are working to transform cultural institutions so they reflect the full range of backgrounds and perspectives in our societies today. This means going beyond artistic output and audience diversity to ensure that leadership, decision-making structures, and staffing in arts and cultural organizations mirror the communities they serve. Agents and artists of change from different backgrounds help us build the necessary bridges through both outreach and inreach activities. Any organization committing time and resources to diversity work has to face a hard truth. We are all part of a bigger, deeply entangled system. Changing institutions from within is not a side project. It requires more strategic, collective effort than almost anything else. It means questioning how resources and professional opportunities are distributed, how embedded norms and business as usual practices quietly reinforce exclusion, how we are all, in one way or another, instrumentalized by the system. Funding structures, thematic goals, financial constraints often push us into tick box processes, even when we try to break free from them. At the same time, learning and unlearning at the institutional level have become buzzwords, while individuals working under precarious conditions continue to carry the burden. Many are locked out from the cultural management elite, often facing racism, ethnic profiling, and discrimination, yet are repeatedly asked to prove their right to exist. On the top of that, they are expected to double their efforts, often without compensation, to dismantle the very system that marginalizes them. in this cycle, do we ever have the space to step back, reflect, critically question, to be empathic, relevant, and responsive? Are we truly the protagonists of our own stories, or are we just swimming against the current, holding on to everlasting hope and creative energy? I can only answer from my own understanding. For me, artistic and cultural work is a collective act of meaning-making, one that holds beauty and harmony, but also friction and erosion of values. The only way to stay sane, at least for me, is to resist, to change, to transform, to translate, to unlearn, to discover, to fail, to question, and to recognize my own role within the larger system I navigate. Abigail told me about the program and your engagement with so many interconnected topics, from future building to community engagement, from sustainability to systemic thinking. It's clear that you, too, are navigating the complexities of transformation. And perhaps, like me, you are struggling with this fundamental question, one I still cannot find a clear answer to. How come, under the vast arsenal of guidelines, toolkits, research, and countless how-to manuals tied to various leadership models, we hardly see the transformative change we long for? Where are the organizations that have fundamentally altered the entire system and structures, rising from their own ashes with something entirely new? Where is the agency of cultural practitioners, artists, the ones who should be designing new frameworks? Why do we keep relying on business-oriented structures instead of creating models that are actually shaped by artists and cultural professionals? Maybe I have been asking the wrong question. Instead of wondering how to improve leadership within the existing system, perhaps we should ask, do we even need a leadership model rooted in the corporate world? Time and time again, we make small, surface-level adjustments, repacking the same old structures under new leadership styles. But in reality, we are resisting deep systemic change. It is one of the most sophisticated barriers, an invisible wall that gives the illusion of progress. And yet, when we take a hard, honest look, most of these efforts remain frustratingly superficial. This brings me to a powerful critique by American artist and scholar Angela Davis. She questions the very notion of diversity, arguing that it often simply means making the system run more efficiently with the people it once excluded. As she puts it, who wants to be assimilated into a racist institution when the institution continues to maintain its racist structure? This is exactly where we need to pause and reflect. The systems we try to fix, the leadership models we embrace, the structures we make more inclusive and sustainable, all of these efforts are still built within the same power dynamics. And when it comes to arts and cultural institutions, these models often fail. They rarely challenge the deep-rooted inequalities they claim to address. I want to leave you with a passage from the Manifesto of Change, co-written by the brilliant artists and agents of change from cultural transformation movements. I want to name Dunya, Mira, Eli, Emmanuel, Ksenia, Farila, and Laura. Not because poetry is one of the most powerful ways of meaning-making, not because it offers refuge when we are surrounded by empty words, but because it is an enchanting act of resistance. We dream of a world where silent stories are heard and valued. Vulnerabilities become strengths, and love, not success, defines our lives. We refuse to conform with injustice. We refuse to accept lies. We will repair, restore, rebuild. We demand stop the violence, start the routine, dismantling of oppressive systems, a planet-first approach, care for all beings, slow down to project. This is a manifesto for those who dream of a better world, for anyone seeking to transform injustice into care in the cultural sector, disconnection into solidarity, and stagnation into creativity. If you have felt the urge to act but didn't know where to begin, let this be your invitation. Thank you for listening.
Are you open if we ask questions? Sure. Any questions from the group? Maybe on the manifesto or? Yeah.
Yes, so EH is a network of different cultural spaces, right?
Yes.
So would you say that cultural spaces in London or Sweden specifically differ, like from other cultural spaces in Europe? Or how do they?
Well, actually, it's maybe the beauty of it, because like anything else, every organization, every group, every artistic practice, it's unique in its own settings. So in that sense, we are talking about a set around 170 grassroots cultural organizations spread 43 countries. That means that, of course, each organization, each member is unique. And they are different in terms of capacity, they are different in terms of resources. We have some small organizations in the rural areas. We have quite established big organizations with completely different governance structures in the cities. So I would say yes, it's a very diverse array of membership.
Marcel, who should ask their question first? Just kidding. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
So you talked about to bring change, you need to change the underlying system. I 100% agree with that, especially if you look at inequalities, discrimination. It's often not individual biases that lead to that, but deeply rooted systematic cultural causes. However, that leaves one question open. If they are so systemic, if they are so in a way that they constantly reproduce, where do we start? What can we really do to manifest this change?
Well, thank you very much. I think this is the core of whole thinking, and I can only answer it from my personal perspective, as I'm only fully able to represent myself here in this thinking. I always try to reflect on what is my role in those systems, and what I try to also express that we should really see ourselves as one of the components of big system. Of course, we have the agency, we have the power, either reproduce or try to do something else, or come together, get organized with others. I mean, this is a lifelong work. We need to find our space and our dedication to really do this work in the way that we feel is right. And I believe, and maybe to reflect on the closing words from the panel discussion, I'm fully hopeful. And in one way or another, we will make the change. Because if you think about the human history, there has been so many changes, and the systems are made by people. We can dismantle, rebuild, we can either work with it, we can either try to change it, but yeah, we have an agency. This is how I see it.
My question was on inclusivity. It was brought up in the panel discussion. How do we build systems that are inclusive, and in your speech you talked about, you know, who wants to be integrated into a racist company if you're a person of color, for instance. And I'm curious if you could talk about how in your work you think about inclusivity or being prepared for inclusivity, or yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, I have a little bit of interesting relationship to the notion of inclusiveness, because for me it also manifests a certain power structure, who includes whom, under which conditions, and I mean, are we talk about a real and true inclusion in that sense? Maybe if we think about the whole orchestrated work in order to change certain injustices that we experience or be a part of it, if I call it as the diversity work, I would say, I mean, every decision we make, everything that around our work and around our collaborations that we do should come with this question: are we really trying to do something different than what we have been doing? I mean, trying to also set ourselves free from the business as usual practices. Because it's quite normal that we all, including myself, have tendency to go easily to like-minded people, to do the things that we are so used to do. It's a kind of the way in our maybe mind, this behavior. And if we are not challenging ourselves to change the mindset and the perspective, then also our surroundings, I think the inclusivity that we aim to reach might not happen, because I see it as a constant work, and also including a very strong reflection to the power and how we exercise our power. I hope I answered.
Yeah.
Just about the question that he asked, because I used to work for Transferpal.
Oh, okay. Nice to meet you.
I saw you 3 days ago. You were presenting at the.
He's also allowed to farm.
And now I have one of the manifesto. But I wanted to interrupt about the systemic change, because I know that the network also works with advocacy. The reason why the network was created was actually because there was a crisis, and there was a need for survival. And that actually has pushed for some regulatory changes, and that has pushed for that created movement of resistance on using abandoned spaces. And after the wars, it was the industrial spaces and it was defense buildings. And then a lot of artists has occupied these spaces, and what the network did was actually to support these movements, and that's how a lot of them became grassroots. And then there was also some buildings that were bound to be dismantled or like become temporary buildings. So then there was also the support from the network to either enable artists and citizens to use these temporary spaces, or to help them maintain it. So then, it was just like in addition from the network perspective, what I also know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for.
Any last question? No? Thank you so much. And now, Frederick, will you wrap us up and also,
How do you do this? I was so happy when I heard about the theme, because I think relating art or culture, that's also one thing, the relationship between culture and art, how we see that. But as a theme around sustainability, it's kind of like you wonder, why isn't art and culture major themes in sustainability? And sometimes I think it's not an oversight. It might be because art and culture are opportunities to ask difficult questions. And it's also difficult to kind of contain culture and art.
because it doesn't, you can't really say you have to interpret these data like this. Well, that doesn't work with artistic expression. You can interpret art depending on the context, depending on your background, depending on the situation you are in. It's kind of interesting when you look at pieces of art or listen to music or see a movie, maybe made 50 years ago, in that context 50 years ago. You see it today in another context with kind of the orange man in the White House. Suddenly you interpret artistic expression in quite different ways. So that's also, I think, a possibility for sustainability, because sustainability is also not a thing that is kind of fixed. It's also something that is constantly being transformed. The sustainability we talk about today is not the sustainability we talked about 50 years ago. There are new questions, new expressions, new perspectives, things that we didn't look at. And especially some of the themes that we've talked about today, I think especially things like knowledge is super interesting, because there's also the question about power. So power and knowledge and that relationship, which also means that artistic expressions open for new possibilities of knowing. So I had a quote, because also I think the interesting we talk about imagination or imagining the possible futures, because there's some kind of talk or discussion that's been going on that we have a major crisis of imagination. We are not really we're not allowed really to imagine the sustainable future that we want. So art and culture enables us ways to not also to have kind of a very kind of single framed version or imagination of the future, but because we need a multi kind of perspective for the future, many possible sustainable futures. And then a way to understand that and to discuss that is actually through, I think, art. And hope, well, it's kind of difficult. I mean, sometimes I think when I started to try to put something together to talk about, I've been really struggling, because it's like, you can do it like this, you can do it like that. But the first sentence I put up here is actually a quote, or the title of a book that I got, "How did we end up in this mess?" And I was thinking, but that's also the problem, because if we focus too much on the mess and who put us in this mess and so forth, it's also, then we become part of the mess. So instead, I put here this quote by Buckminster Fuller, if you know him, saying, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." And that would be my final words for today. Thank you very much.
And then we'll hear a couple words from Carlos. If you want to come up and just talk about the alumni group. And while you're coming up, I want to say a thank you to everyone who helped plan the event. So if you helped plan this alumni event, Marta, Julia, Gabriella, can you stand up and we can just say a little thank you? David, you made the art. You made the art. Matilda, you decorated. Matthew. And Senya. Yeah, thank you.
On the spot. No, it's really nice to see a lot of faces after a long year. I just want to say thank you guys. This is everything that we wanted, just to keep this thing going on. Besides that, at least from my side, I think we should be more active in the group. That's on us. That's nothing that had to do with you. I think this year was fun because it was different. I think the first few years was really tied to the sustainability that we want to have. This is maybe what we need, which is also great to have. Besides that, I'm just really happy to see you guys. Let's keep this thing going. I will need your help for the next, upcoming class in 2026. So you probably, be there just to try to help them to do the same. Besides that, I think I have anything else to say. Just thank you for coming and thank you for being part of this great event. We are a big network, guys. As you can see, we always show up. And I think one thing that I have learned is this year I took off of, my sustainability life as I knew it. And I kind of like went back and tried to reflect on what I was doing and where I really wanted to go. And also, we need to see that we have a lot of people that are actually trying to swim into the same way. So maybe that's what we should do more, just to stay in touch and connect with each other, share what we have learned, what we have suffered from in our jobs also. Because that's the bubble. I think I was talking, with, I think it was with Anna. Once you break that bubble, guys, it is where I start to, just to question if this is what you really, really want to do. And I think you're going to be out in a few months. I wish you the best in those theses. It's going to be probably really 3 busy months until June. But you can do it. You're almost there. But I think after you graduate, that's when the real ones start. And just make sure that it's okay to fail. It's okay to learn. It's not going to be like the classroom. I can tell you that after almost 4 years now. It's completely different, but we have each other. We have this group. We have many people from different, part of, of industries that we can help. We have Frederick still. Jenny, thanks again. 1 more year for helping us. You always are so grateful to help them. Besides that, I wish you the best for this year. For the rest that I haven't seen, I hope that we can hug and we can talk about what you guys have been doing for the last year. That's it from my side. So we keep in touch. I promise from the LinkedIn side, I will probably try to be best at posting things, maybe doing some other things. I know the landscape is moving at 1,000 miles per hour and we cannot even stay. So thank you. And let's have some fun after, right? So
Thank you. We want to take a group photo. So if we could just smush between these beams, facing the screen. And you can mingle inside of the chairs, however you need to kind of squish together.
But what about, it's not better here?
We're going to just stay inside for the chair. So we can get down low and up high. I'm the camera.
Maybe I sit on the chair, one, and there is a second.
Everyone in the back, you need to come forward. We can't see you.
The smallest people.
Yeah, come down a little bit.
All right, are we ready?
Yes.
All right. SALSU 2025.
Sorry. Cheese.
One more. Sorry.
Say something.
Oh shit, I did a video.
That happens to the best of us.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
I realized.
See you.